You think 2026 is going to change your life? You think a new year, a new calendar, a new number is going to magically transform who you are? It won't. Let that hit you. Because the truth is brutal. Nothing changes until you change. Not the year, not the environment, not the people around you. You. And if you walk into 2026 with the same habits, the same mindset, the same excuses, you will build the same life. Different year, same results. Read that again. Different year, same results. This is where most people lie to themselves. They say, this is my year. But they don't change their standards. They don't change their discipline. They don't change their identity. So nothing changes. Hope is not a strategy. Motivation is not a plan. And time does not reward intention. It rewards execution. This is the part nobody wants to hear. You don't need a new year. You need a new standard. Because right now, your life reflects what you tolerate. Not what you want. Not what you dream about. What you tolerate. If you tolerate laziness, you get weakness. If you tolerate inconsistency, you get mediocrity. If you tolerate excuses, you get regret. That's the equation. And you've been solving it wrong. Let that sink in. You keep trying to change the outcome without changing the inputs. But life doesn't work like that. You don't get results by wishing. You get results by becoming someone who produces them. This is where the shift begins. Not in January. Not on a Monday. Right now. Because change doesn't wait for a date. Change happens when you decide that enough is enough. And decision is not a feeling. It's a line in the sand. It's a moment where you say, I refuse to stay this version of myself any longer. That's where it starts. And from that moment, everything becomes a test. Every morning is a test. Every distraction is a test. Every excuse is a test. And 2026? That's your battlefield. Not a celebration. Not a fresh start. A battlefield. Because the version of you that exists right now will fight to survive. It will try to pull you back into comfort, into old habits, into familiar weakness. That's the enemy. And it lives inside you. Read that again. The fight is not out there. It's within. One side of you wants growth. The other wants comfort. One side demands discipline. The other negotiates with excuses. And whichever side you feed wins. So ask yourself, what have you been feeding? Because your results already answered that question. This is where you stop lying. No more, I'll try. No more, I'll start later. No more, I need motivation. No, you either do it or you don't. And that decision, repeated daily, becomes your life. 2026 is not special. You are, but only if you act like it. Because potential means nothing without execution. Talent means nothing without discipline. Dreams mean nothing without action. And action is uncomfortable. It's inconvenient. It's repetitive. It's boring. That's why most people don't do it. They wait for excitement. They wait for energy. They wait for the perfect moment. But the truth is simple. The perfect moment is a lie. And the longer you wait, the further you fall behind. This is your wake-up call. Not gentle, not polite. Real. You don't rise by accident. You rise by design, by structure, by standards, by doing what you said you would do. Long after the feeling is gone. That's discipline. And discipline is the weapon that will change your life. Not in one day, not in 1 week, but over time. Relentlessly, quietly, inevitably. So, if you want 2026 to be different, you have to be different. Not slightly, completely. Different mindset, different habits, different identity. Because the old you cannot create a new life. That version has to go. No negotiation, no hesitation, no excuses. You burn it, and you rebuild. From scratch. Stronger, sharper, more disciplined. Because this is not about improvement. This is about transformation. This is about becoming someone unrecognizable. Someone who doesn't wait. Someone who doesn't complain. Someone who doesn't quit when it gets hard. Because it will get hard. That's guaranteed. But so is your growth if you stay in the fight. And that's the difference. Most people stop when it hurts. You keep going. That's how you separate. That's how you win. That's how you change your life. not by hoping 2026 will be better, but by becoming someone who refuses to stay the same. So the question is not, will 2026 change your life? The question is, will you? Answer that with action. Not words, not promises, action. Because at the end of the year, there will be two versions of you. The one who made excuses and the one who made progress. Choose wisely. You don't drift into a new life. You fight your way into it. And 2026 is not waiting to welcome you. It's waiting to test you. Harder than before, stronger than before, relentless. Because every year doesn't make life easier. It exposes you more. It reveals your habits faster. It punishes your weakness quicker. And if you walk in unprepared, you will get crushed by your own patterns. Let that sink in. This is not about hype. This is about reality. Because the truth is, your biggest enemy in 2026 will not be competition. It will be repetition. Repeating the same mistakes. Repeating the same excuses. Repeating the same weak decisions. Day after day. That's how people stay stuck. Not because they lack opportunity, but because they recycle failure and call it trying. No more. This is where you break the cycle. This is where you interrupt the pattern. Because change doesn't come from doing more. It comes from doing differently. Read that again. Doing differently. You don't need 10 new goals. You need one new standard. One standard that you refuse to break. No matter what. No matter how you feel. No matter how hard it gets. Because feelings will betray you. They always do. You'll feel tired. You'll feel lazy. You'll feel unmotivated. Good, because now you have a choice. Obey your feelings or command your actions. And that decision, repeated daily, builds your future. This is the war of 2026. Not external, internal. A silent war. A brutal war. A war nobody will see, but everyone will feel through your results. Because results don't lie. They expose your discipline. They expose your habits. They expose your truth. And deep down, you already know yours. This is the moment where you stop hiding, stop pretending, stop negotiating. Because every time you negotiate with your standards, you lower your identity. And a lowered identity creates a limited life. That's the connection. You don't rise above your standards. You fall to them. Let that hit you. So raise them aggressively, relentlessly, non-negotiably. You said you would wake up early, then wake up. No debate. You said you would train, then train. No excuses. You said you would build something, then build. No delays. Because every kept promise to yourself builds power, and every broken one destroys trust. And without trust in yourself, you have nothing, no confidence, no consistency, no growth. So this is where you rebuild it. Brick by brick, promise by promise, action by action, until your word means something again to you. Because the world doesn't care what you say, it watches what you repeat. And repetition creates identity. So what identity are you building? The one who starts and stops, or the one who finishes no matter what? Because 2026 will amplify whoever you are, not who you pretend to be. Who you actually are. And if you don't like that answer, good, because now you know what to change. This is your opportunity, not the year. The awareness, because awareness without action is useless. So you move immediately, not tomorrow, not next week, now. Because hesitation is the gateway back to your old life. And you've been there long enough. This is your line. Cross it, and don't look back. Because on the other side, there is a version of you that doesn't hesitate, doesn't complain, doesn't quit. A version that executes with precision, with discipline, with purpose. And once you become that, time starts working for you, not against you. Days stack. Progress compounds. Results appear, not by luck, by design. So when 2026 ends and you look back, you won't say, I tried. You won't say, I hoped. You won't say, I wanted. You'll say, I did. And that word carries weight because it's built on action, on discipline, on sacrifice. And sacrifice is the price of transformation. No shortcuts, no discounts. You either pay now or you pay later with regret. Choose wisely. Because regret is heavier, longer, permanent. And success? Success is built daily, quietly, alone, through decisions nobody sees. But everyone will eventually feel. This is your year, not because of the number, but because of the decision. So decide, right now, who you will be, and then prove it, every single day. No breaks, no excuses, no negotiation, just action. Relentless action, because that's how lives change. Not in moments, in habits, not in dreams. In discipline, not in comfort, in pressure. And you are ready, not because it's easy, but because you finally understand what it takes. Now go, build the life that most people will only talk about. There will be a moment in 2026 when everything feels heavy. Not exciting, not new, not inspiring, just heavy. The goals you set, still far away. The progress you hoped for, slower than expected. The energy you had at the beginning, gone. And this, right here, is where most people disappear. Not at the start, not when it's fresh, but in the middle. When it's boring, when it's repetitive, when it feels like nothing is working. This is where dreams go to die. Let that sink in. Because the beginning is easy. Everyone is motivated in January. Everyone is excited when it's new. But the real test is who you become when it's no longer exciting, when it becomes routine, when it becomes discipline, when it becomes a choice instead of a feeling. This is where 2026 will decide who you are. Not by what you said in the beginning, but by what you repeat in the middle. Read that again. Because repetition is the real game. Not motivation, not talent, not luck. Repetition. Doing the same hard things over and over again. Without applause. Without immediate results. Without recognition. That's where power is built. That's where identity is forged. This is your fire, and most people walk out of it too early. They feel the heat and they retreat. They feel the pressure and they break. But you stay. You stay when it's uncomfortable. You stay when it's frustrating. You stay when nothing seems to change. Because you understand something they don't. The fire is not there to destroy you. It's there to refine you. Like gold, burning away weakness, burning away excuses, burning away the old version of you until only strength remains. But that process, it's painful, it's slow, it's unforgiving. And that's why it works. Because only the disciplined survive it. Only the committed endure it. Only the obsessed finish it. So when that moment comes, when you feel like stopping, when your mind starts negotiating, when your body starts resisting, that's your signal not to quit, to double down. Because that feeling, that resistance, that's the edge. That's the exact point where growth begins. Most people turn back right there. You go forward. That's the difference. That's how you separate permanently. Because now you're not just chasing a goal. You're building a standard, a non-negotiable standard. That says, I finish what I start. I show up no matter what. I don't break when it gets hard. And once that standard is locked in, everything changes. Because now you're not relying on motivation. You're operating on identity. And identity is powerful. Because it doesn't fluctuate. It doesn't depend on mood. It doesn't depend on circumstances. It stays. And when it stays, you become consistent. And consistency creates results. Inevitable results. Let that hit you. Not maybe, not sometimes. Inevitable. Because if you do the work long enough, the result has no choice. It has to show up. That's the law. But most people never see it because they quit too early. They walk away right before the breakthrough, right before the shift, right before everything starts to click. Don't be that person. Not this time, not in 2026. This time, you stay. This time, you endure. This time, you finish. Because finishing is rare. Starting is common. Talking is common. Planning is common. But finishing? That's elite. That's where respect is built. Self-respect. Because at the end of the day, that's what this is really about. Not money, not status, not validation. Respect. The kind you earn from yourself. The kind that says, I became who I said I would be. And that feeling? You can't fake it. You can't buy it. You can't borrow it. You earn it. Through discipline. through sacrifice, through relentless execution. So when 2026 tries to break you, and it will, you don't fold. You don't negotiate. You don't go back. You stand your ground because you've already decided. And once a decision becomes identity, there is no alternative. Only forward, only growth, only evolution. This is your year. Not because it's easy, but because you are finally ready to do what most people won't. Stay, endure, execute, finish. And when it's all said and done, when the year is over, when the results are visible, when the transformation is undeniable, you won't need to say anything. Your life will say it for you.